Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. The HOA tried to force me into their community. They didn't know I was a judge. I've been lurking on Reddit for years, especially all the HOA horror stories on here. You know the ones, bored middle-aged tyrants with a clipboard and a god complex trying to micromanage people's shrubs and trash cans like they're running the Pentagon. I always thought that sucks, but that had never happened to me. I'm a judge. I literally deal with petty power trips for a living. I read contracts for fun. I yell at people, nicely, to read the fine print and know their rights. I am, professionally, the kind of guy who's supposed to catch this kind of crap before it lands in a courtroom. So when I decided it was finally time to buy the I Can Breathe Here house, the very first thing on my list was no HOA, no board, no newsletter, no one telling me what shade of beige my front door is allowed to be. I'd been on the bench just over 20 years at that point. I'd seen every fight you can imagine, divorces that made nuclear wars look polite, neighbors suing over 2 inches of fence line, businesses imploding over badly written partnership agreements. By the time I hit my 50s, I didn't want excitement. I wanted quiet, a porch, a mug of coffee, a couple of old trees, and the kind of sky that reminds you the world is bigger than whatever misery you have scheduled at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I found it in a small town in Colorado. Appalachian-style wraparound porch, old oaks in the yard, a driveway long enough that if I didn't want to see the road, I didn't have to. You know that feeling when you walk into a place and your brain just goes, oh, home. That was it. And then I read the line in the purchase documents that almost made me giddy. This property is not and has never been subject to any homeowners association or common interest community. I didn't take it on faith. I'm not one of those, oh, the realtor said it's fine people. I read every page of that contract twice. I checked the county records myself. I searched for covenants, easements, restrictions, anything that might let some future clipboard goblin wander onto my porch and demand I hide my trash cans behind an approved lattice. Clean, clear, mine. We closed on a Friday. On Sunday, I was on the porch with coffee, watching the sun come up over the ridge, seriously thinking I might actually learn to relax before I retire. That peaceful golden maybe life won't kill me phase lasted almost exactly 2 weeks. The first envelope showed up on a Tuesday. Plain white, maple leaf logo in the corner, Maple Ridge Homeowners Association in big, proud letters. It looked like junk mail pretending to be important, the way credit card offers try to look like tax notices. I almost chucked it straight into the trash. Curiosity won. Welcome to Maple Ridge, it chirped in big friendly font. Underneath, the tone shifted. This letter serves as your notice that your first homeowners association dues in the amount of $185 are now due and payable on the first of each month. Failure to remit dues in a timely manner may result in late fees, penalties, and possible collection action. I actually laughed out loud. I assume some marketing intern pulled every new deed in the zip code and blasted them with welcome packets, hoping nobody would ask questions. I tossed it on the counter and went back to work. 3 days later, envelope number 2. This one had notice of violation in bold red across the top like I'd committed war crimes, not moved into a house. Apparently my front yard was non-compliant with approved landscaping guidelines. The letter included a grainy cell phone photo of my lawn taken from the sidewalk. It looked like a lawn. Grass slightly long because I'd spent the week neck-deep in case files. A couple of dandelions, an old oak tree. No rusted appliances, no broken toilets, no car up on cinder blocks, just grass. I rolled my eyes and put that letter on top of the first one. The third letter is when it stopped being funny. Your vehicle does not meet the aesthetic standards of Maple Ridge HOA. All vehicles must be parked in the garage when not in use. Street or driveway parking of non-compliant vehicles is subject to fines. My non-compliant vehicle? A perfectly ordinary gray pickup truck. No lift kit, no flames down the side, no "Let's go Brandon" bumper stickers. If anything, it was the least interesting truck in the entire county. That's when the laughter died and the judge brain clicked on. I picked up the phone. I dialed the number at the bottom of the letter under "Contact the office if you have questions." Second ring, someone answered. You could hear the boredom and irritation before she even finished the greeting. "Maple Ridge Homeowners Association, this is Carol." "Hi, Carol," I said. "My name is Daniel Grant. I've received 3 letters from you in the last week, and I think there's been a mistake. My property isn't part of any HOA. What's your address?" she asked, the way people ask for a password they already think you don't have. I gave it to her. I heard rapid keyboard clacking. "You live on Maple Ridge Drive," she announced. "Every home on that street is a member of the HOA. Dues are mandatory." "That's interesting," I said, trying to keep the annoyance out of my voice, "because my deed and purchase agreement explicitly say my parcel is not encumbered by any covenants or association. There's no HOA in the title history, and I never signed any membership agreement, so no, I'm not a member." She snorted. "The board voted last year to expand the HOA boundaries to include your side of the street. You're in our community now. You have to follow our rules." There it was, that magic little word, voted. As if 6 bored people in a room with Costco cookies and a whiteboard could rewrite recorded property rights by show of hands. "That's not how it works," I said very evenly. "You can't unilaterally impose an HOA on properties that were never subject to it without the owner's consent. That's not just opinion, that's state law." Her voice went cold, like I'd personally insulted her laminated badge. "If you refuse to comply, the board will begin issuing fines," she said. "Persistent non-compliance can result in liens on your property and referral to collections. This will affect your credit, Mr. Grant." The way she dropped Mr. Grant at the end told me she'd practiced that line in the mirror. "You'll be hearing from us," she finished and hung up. I just stared at my phone for a second. 90% of my job is staying calm while people say stupid things. I don't give my temper away for free. But something about that call hit a very specific nerve. Maybe it was the tone, maybe it was 20 years of watching petty tyrants hide behind policy and bylaws to push people around. Maybe it was just the fact that this was my house, my sanctuary, and some stranger had just effectively said, "Nice place. We own your peace now." I put the phone down, and I waited. I didn't have to wait long. The next week, I opened my front door at 8 a.m. and nearly collided with her. 50-something, helmet hair, too much perfume, a clipboard like an extra limb, and a laminated badge swinging from her neck. Catherine Mason, President, Maple Ridge HOA. Of course. "Good morning," I said. "Can I help you?" "You must be Mr. Grant," she said, giving me a smile that never made it to her eyes. "We've sent you several notices you've chosen to ignore." "I received your letters," I said. "I'm not ignoring them. They just don't apply to me. My property isn't in your association." "That's not how this works," she snapped, and I almost laughed because she actually tried to use my own phrase back at me. "The board voted to expand our boundaries. Everyone on this street enjoys our amenities and is subject to our rules. It wouldn't be fair to the homeowners who pay their dues if one person thought he was above the community." "I'm not above anything," I said. "I'm just not in it. I never signed any agreement. My title has no HOA covenants." "You don't get to rewrite my deed because you took a vote." Her mouth tightened. "If you continue refusing to pay," she said sharply, "we'll start fining you. Those fines can become liens. We will involve collections. That'll go on your record. This is not a fight you want to pick, Mr. Grant. We take our standards very seriously." My doorbell camera caught every word. Clear audio, clear video. I could see my own eyebrow go up. "You've been warned," she said. "We expect your first dues payment by the end of the month. And that pickup truck needs to be in the garage. It's ruining the sightline down the street." Then she spun on her heel and marched back to her SUV like she'd just conquered a small country. She had absolutely no idea who she'd just threatened. Nobody in the neighborhood knew what I did for a living. That was on purpose. I moved out there to be left alone, not to have every neighbor asking for free legal advice at barbecues. When people asked, I said I worked in law, which is technically true. I left out the Your Honor part. What Catherine didn't know is that I'd spent 2 decades watching people like her get smacked around by the actual law after convincing themselves they were the law. So instead of lecturing her in my driveway like I wanted to, I did what I tell everyone else to do. I called my lawyer. He's an old friend. I sent him scans of the letters, a copy of my deed, and the video from the doorbell camera. I also added a short message. "You're going to love this." He called the next morning laughing. "These people are out of their minds," he said. "They can't do any of this." "I know," I said, "but I don't want to be the one to tell them. I want the state to tell them, on paper." Step 1 was a cease and desist letter. Nothing fancy, no flexing, no threats, just cold surgical facts. It laid out in bullet points, Maple Ridge HOA has no recorded authority over my parcel. Their claims of jurisdiction were false. Their threats of liens and collections were baseless and arguably unlawful. Further attempts to collect or harass could be violations of state regulations. It gave them 10 business days to knock it off. 10 days went by. They did not knock it off. If anything, they escalated. More envelopes. Final notice. Escalation of enforcement. One truly hilarious one warned that legal action was imminent, and they strongly advised me to seek counsel so I could understand the seriousness of the situation. Already did, Catherine. Thanks. Meanwhile, in the neighborhood Facebook group, yes, my realtor had warned me, but I joined anyway out of morbid curiosity, Catherine started posting thinly veiled rants about a certain new resident who thinks he's above the rules, refusing to pay his fair share while enjoying our beautiful community. A few HOA diehards chimed in with the usual, "If you don't like rules, don't move into an HOA" nonsense. A surprising number of people, though, commented things like, "Wait, can the HOA even do that?" And "I thought those houses weren't in the association." Those comments vanished within hours. While Catherine was busy playing dictator on Facebook, my lawyer filed a formal complaint with the state, specifically with the department that oversees HOAs and community associations. We included everything: the letters, my deed, the videos, screenshots of her posts, the cease and desist they'd ignored. It was a neat little package labeled, "Here's your problem, child." State agencies move slowly. They're like glaciers with stationary, but they do move. A couple months later, Maple Ridge HOA received a notice summoning them to an administrative hearing regarding improper assertion of authority, unlawful collection practices, and misrepresentation of covenant applicability. Catherine predictably assumed this would be another chance to grandstand. She showed up in a power blazer. I showed up in a suit that probably cost more than her entire miscellaneous expenses budget for the year. My lawyer came along mostly for entertainment value at this point. When the hearing officer walked in and opened the file, he read in that bureaucratic monotone, "Case number XXX, complainant, Honorable Judge Daniel R. Grant." I watched it land. Catherine's head snapped toward me so fast I heard her earrings click. Her lawyer leaned in and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "You didn't tell me he's a judge." I smiled politely and folded my hands. Everything after that was inevitable. My lawyer went first. He laid out the timeline, the documents, the video. He's good at what he does. I've seen him dismantle far more complicated nonsense with fewer exhibits. The hearing officer turned to the HOA's attorney. "Do you have any recorded covenants, declarations, or amendments placing Mr. Grant's parcel under Maple Ridge's authority?" he asked. The attorney shuffled papers, coughed, and said, "The board voted to expand." The officer held up a hand. "I'm not asking about votes," he said. "I'm asking about recorded instruments. Anything in the county records applying your covenants to his parcel?" Silence. "No, Your Honor," the attorney finally admitted. "Old habits. Once you're in a room with a judge, everybody's Your Honor, even if you're not in the courtroom." The officer nodded. He then turned to Catherine. "Mrs. Mason, did you personally inform Mr. Grant that you would be placing liens on his property and reporting him to collections if he did not pay dues to your association?" She straightened her shoulders. "We follow our standard enforcement procedures with all homeowners," she said. "It wouldn't be fair to the community if—" "Mrs. Mason," he cut in, "answer the question, please." She hesitated. "Yes," she said finally. The hearing officer opened a folder, pulled out a printout, and read from it. "This is not a fight you want to pick, Mr. Grant. We take our standards very seriously." He looked up. "That's you on video, yes?" She glared at me like I'd hacked her phone instead of just owning a doorbell camera. He sighed. "An HOA cannot expand its jurisdiction over non-encumbered properties by internal vote alone," he said. "You cannot threaten liens or collections against someone whose property is not subject to your covenants. That's not a gray area. That's not open to interpretation. That's basic property and contract law." The state's written decision landed a few weeks later, and it was a thing of beauty. Maple Ridge was ordered to cease all enforcement attempts against me. They were reprimanded for misrepresentation of authority and improper collection practices. They were fined. And best of all, they were referred for a full financial audit due to concerns about governance and transparency. That's when everything blew up. HOA finances are like junk drawers. You never really want to look inside. The state brought a flashlight and a pair of gloves. The audit uncovered thousands of dollars in miscellaneous expenses with no receipts, personal charges on the HOA credit card, restaurants, spas, a weekend at a ski resort, loans taken out against future dues to cover operational shortfalls, and the crown jewel, a Porsche Macan titled in Catherine's name, paid for entirely with HOA funds under administrative vehicle. They bought her a Porsche with other people's dues. Homeowners were not thrilled. The bank, suddenly realizing this HOA was a financial tire fire, yanked their credit line. Emergency special assessments hit every homeowner like a brick through their window. People started asking very loud questions Catherine did not have good answers to. An emergency meeting was called. I didn't go. I watched the video later when someone kindly emailed me a copy. Catherine tried to blame accounting errors. She called the audit biased. She tried the "we're all volunteers doing our best" line. Then somebody pulled out the paperwork on the Porsche. The vote to remove her from the board was not close. It was a massacre. The Porsche got repossessed right out of her driveway a few weeks later. Neighbors sent me photos. I don't encourage schadenfreude, but I'm also not a liar. I enjoyed those photos. Without her little HOA fiefdom propping up her lifestyle, the rest of her life collapsed fast. Between clawbacks, penalties, and whatever debt she'd piled up, assuming the gravy train would run forever, she couldn't keep her house. It went up for sale 6 months later. She moved into a small, tired duplex across town. Somebody mentioned seeing her in line at the DMV looking like she'd swallowed a cactus, turning in the plates for the Porsche and picking up tags for a faded early 2000s Toyota Corolla. Life has a sense of humor sometimes. The last time I saw her was at a red light on Main Street. I was in my non-compliant gray pickup, window down, enjoying the mountain air. She pulled up beside me in the Corolla. The clear coat was peeling. One of the hubcaps was missing. For a second, our eyes met. She looked away first. I didn't wave. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The universe had done that for me already via audit and repossession. I drove home. My home. No covenants. No HOA. Turns out the only thing non-compliant in this neighborhood was their common sense. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.